If you're a regular Call of Duty player, or hell, even if you follow any gaming news at all, then you should have at least heard something about Microsoft's impending acquisition of Activision Blizzard. And if you haven't, well, we're here for a reason, aren't we? So here's the gist of the situation as we know it. Early in 2022, Microsoft announced its intention to acquire Activision Blizzard for a staggering $68 billion. Well, $68.7 billion if we're being really specific. Can't forget that chump change, that's still around $700 million. And since then, well, let's just say Microsoft hasn't had the greatest time with the whole ordeal. So what's transpired till now? It's pretty safe to say that this whole situation has rattled a lot of nests since the news was made public last year. And it's pretty easy to see why. To begin with, this is not pennies we're talking about here. It's almost $69 billion. To put it into perspective, Microsoft forked over about $7.5 billion for Bethesda almost 2 years ago, which is less than 9 times the amount we're talking about here. If this deal actually goes through, it will be the largest acquisition in the video game industry, and we mean that both monetarily and in terms of scale. All of this is such a big deal that multiple governments across the world and even Sony themselves are concerned, and rightfully so. Not only is it an astronomical amount of money involved in the deal, but it also gives Microsoft full control over gigantic IPs like Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, and even Candy Crush. Call of Duty alone is such a massive property that it manages to sell tens of millions of copies each year, even when reviews are overwhelmingly negative and the product is riddled with bugs. So, a lot of people are worried that Microsoft wants to make it more expensive, harder, or perhaps even downright impossible to play some of these games on platforms not owned directly by the company. Sony is especially concerned and has in fact been surprisingly vocal about their opposition to this deal, because a significant number of players buy PlayStation consoles to play these games, and that in turn generates millions in sales for them. But in contrast to all of that, Microsoft is actually being incredibly polite. Phil Spencer and the team have already promised, and when I say promise, I actually mean that they have proposed a legally binding contract that they would offer Call of Duty to other platforms, albeit for a period of 10 years. This offer was followed by Nintendo entering into the commitment, and a reply even came from Steam saying that Microsoft has all the motivation they need to be on platforms where Call of Duty customers would like to be. Microsoft President Brad Smith further said that the same offer was on the table for Sony if they want to sit down and talk. Well, they probably aren't ready for that yet, Brad. And on top of all this, there's still more Microsoft has to endure as the FTC has decided to sue the company over the deal by claiming that this merger could impede access to Activision games on other consoles. And this was after what Microsoft has already offered to its competitors along with the claims they have made about the future. Now, this all seems really serious for Phil Spencer and the rest of the company. But in my opinion, this will not stop the purchase, as the case just doesn't have any grounds to what it's claiming. Both Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick and Brad Smith are pretty confident in this too, with Mr. Smith in particular saying that they have complete confidence in their case and welcome the opportunity to present it in the court. So, where are we at right now? Well, first, UK regulators launched an antitrust probe into the acquisition, then it was the FTC, and now there are 10 random gamers who have taken it upon themselves to fight it out with Microsoft with a lawsuit that basically boils down to, hold up, are you really trying to acquire Activision Blizzard for some 69 billion doubloons? If you're watching this video, let me say this up front, this is not gonna work. Even if you're in the right, 10 average Joes, even if they're backed up by some mighty litigator who happens to have the best record in winning anti-consumer cases like this, they still wouldn't be able to crack this particular case. And by the looks of it, these individuals don't actually have any backing like that, and even if they did, it's just difficult to see them making any sort of headway in stopping the behemoth that is Microsoft. Their claims are very similar to that of FTC's, saying that this merger would lead to substantially less competition or tend to create a monopoly. It also claims that Microsoft would hold outsized market power and the ability to foreclose key inputs to rivals and further harm competition. Along with that, this private case and the FTC's as well are using Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda, or more specifically ZeniMax, as proof that the corporation cannot be trusted to stay true to its statements, as 3 future games from that publisher have already been confirmed to be exclusives. And that doesn't really speak well for Xbox's commitment to making games more accessible now, does it? So, can these 10 brave gamers on their quest to stop the acquisition from happening prevail? Probably not. Would the FTC be able to stop it? Probably not as well. So the real question for us gamers is, well, how does this affect us all? Well, according to everything that's already been revealed by Microsoft, the things that have come to light by the FTC, and what general logic dictates, the answer is maybe. It all depends. Microsoft is shelling out a lot of money for this deal, and being a corporation, they probably don't want to lose out on the assets that make acquiring Activision so expensive. Plus, they have said this on multiple occasions as well, that games that have a large multiplayer ecosystem would still be offered on all of other platforms. Games that are more single-player focused, however, well, they probably are going to be Xbox and PC exclusives from now on. Sorry PlayStation fans, you're really out of luck here. This is further evident from all the future Bethesda exclusives, the first of which is just months away at this point, but to be honest, that was already pretty obvious. In fact, the whole reason for these acquisitions from Microsoft has been to secure more exclusives and boost the Xbox player base. Because Xbox, compared to its competitors, simply doesn't have any major exclusives on it right now. And the entire race these days is all about the content, and Microsoft simply acknowledges that openly. Its main goals right now are just to catch up to its major rival, and if it can throw money at the problem, why the hell would it not? And it might actually end up being better for us. Microsoft did claim that the newer games would be available day one on Game Pass, which is a Netflix-like subscription service for games on PC and Xbox. And if you own either of these platforms, Game Pass is literally a godsend. And to be able to play newer games on it, on release at no additional cost, that is an absolute game changer, whether you like the program or not. So in the end, if you haven't already guessed from our video, this acquisition's probably gonna go through. Doesn't matter if 10 people band together or 100, there's simply very little ground to build a solid case on, and it might actually be a good thing, you know? All things considered, the quality of Call of Duty might become better, who knows? But in reality, we all know that's not really guaranteed. But at the end of the day, this whole situation raises much bigger questions. Questions about the power that corporations hold over our daily lives and how quickly they can even consume each other just for the sake of growing. Over time, corporations like Microsoft may very well hold monopolies over certain types of entertainment products, and they may dictate the shape that these entertainment products take for decades to come. Do I want to live in a dystopian future where one company controls all of a certain segment of media? No, but it's probably a day that's closer than we think.